Have you been learning a language for maybe 1 or even 2 years and still freeze when a native speaker talks to you? And the weird part is, this can even happen if you're already intermediate. You might know thousands of words and you might understand grammar, or maybe you've even built a 500-day streak on Duolingo. Maybe you watch content in your target language every single day, but the second it's time to finally speak, your brain locks up. Basic words vanish, you start translating in your head, and suddenly you realize, I've spent years studying this language, but I still feel like I cannot speak it. If that sounds familiar, I need you to understand one simple thing. You are probably not bad at languages. In fact, the problem is usually the opposite. A lot of smart, disciplined language learners get stuck at this part for the exact same reason. They accidentally become really good at recognizing the language without ever training their brain to produce it in real time. And that creates a frustrating illusion. You feel like you know the language right until a real conversation starts. In this video, I want to show you why this happens. And most language learning methods actually make this worse. I'm gonna tell you what to do differently if you want speaking to feel automatic. Because to be honest, I spent years stuck in this cycle myself. Now, quick context, I've spent years studying language learning. I actually have a master's degree in multilingualism and language acquisition. I speak multiple languages myself at different levels. But here's the funny thing, even with all that knowledge, when I started studying Russian, I caught myself making the exact same mistakes as everyone else. I thought, maybe I should study some more grammar. Or if I memorize some more vocabulary, my conversations will be better. Or if I fix my understanding, speaking would come automatically. But that's not how language learning works. And once I realized this, everything changed. So if you've been stuck for years, here are the 3 biggest reasons. Reason number 1 is that you're studying about the language. And this is probably the biggest mistake language learners make. You're learning about the language instead of learning how to use the language. And yes, there is a difference. Let me explain. Think about football, for example. You can watch hours of football content, you can study tactics, and memorize every possible formation. But none of that will automatically make you a football player, because at some point you actually need to step on the pitch and make it happen. Language learning works the exact same way. Lots of people spend years doing grammar exercises and making vocabulary lists. They use apps, watch YouTube videos, and read about language learning. And don't get me wrong, those things are very useful. All these things matter, but here's the problem. Recognizing a sentence is not the same as producing one. And this is, in my opinion, one of the biggest misconceptions about language learning. You might see a sentence and think, hey, I actually understand that. But when somebody asks you a question in real life, your brain shuts down. This happens because understanding is one skill and speaking is another skill. You know, they say practice makes perfect. I actually experienced this myself when learning Russian. I remember having moments where I understood quite a bit. For example, I could read simple things and I recognized words. I also knew some grammar basics, but when somebody asked me a basic question, I felt like a complete beginner again. This was because I had trained recognition instead of retrieval. And there is research behind this. The more you force your brain to use words and sentences you learn under pressure, the stronger your speaking skills become. You basically have to practice speaking if your goal is speaking. And honestly, your first conversations are supposed to feel awkward and horrendous. But even people who do start speaking often stay stuck. And that leads us to mistake number 2. You are waiting too long to speak. This one is huge because a lot of language learners tell themselves, I'll start speaking when I feel ready. Here's the problem, this moment will never come. And it sounds harsh, but it's true. It's the same as saying, I'll go to the gym when I feel fit. It makes no sense because confidence doesn't come before speaking. It comes because of speaking. And I think people aren't afraid of speaking itself. It's actually embarrassment. They don't want to sound stupid, make mistakes, have a weird accent. And trust me, I've been there myself, especially with Russian. There were conversations where I forgot ridiculously basic words. There were moments where I knew what I wanted to say, but I couldn't say it fast enough. And also moments where I probably sounded like a 4-year-old. But here's the thing, discomfort and awkwardness aren't the proof that you're bad at languages. It's proof you're learning, because every conversation teaches you something, and every mistake highlights an existing gap. And this gap becomes the next thing you want to improve. So instead of waiting to feel ready, you should start smaller. Start off with 5-minute conversations with basic introductions and simple questions. You don't need to sound impressive, you need repetition. And mistake number 3 is that your system is inconsistent. Honestly, I think this is the biggest reason why people quit language learning. Most people don't fail because they're bad at languages. They quit because their system is terrible. So what usually happens is that people get super motivated in the beginning. So they study 3 hours on Sunday, watch 10 YouTube videos. They buy a ton of new notebooks and install all sorts of apps. But then life gets in the way and they skip their study sessions for about 10 days. We want to ask ourselves a very important question. What does language learning research consistently show? It shows that consistency beats intensity. Languages actually reward frequency instead of random bursts of motivation. And if I had to restart any language tomorrow, I would keep it very simple. Maybe 10 minutes of listening, 10 minutes of vocabulary review, and 10 minutes of speaking. Just every day, lock in, that's it. Because a realistic plan you can follow daily definitely beats the perfect plan you quit after 1 week. So if you have been studying a language for 2 years but still cannot speak, please stop telling yourself that you're bad at languages. Most people are not failing because of talent, age, or intelligence. They're failing because they spend too much time learning about the language. They also wait too long before they start speaking. And a very important one, they rely on motivation instead of systems. So here's my small challenge for you. Try to have one small conversation in your target language this week. And that conversation can be messy, awkward, or full of mistakes. This is exactly where real progress starts. And remember, you don't become fluent by avoiding discomfort. You become fluent by learning how to move through it. By the way, I'm genuinely obsessed with what actually works in language learning, not gimmicks or fake fluency hacks, just real evidence-based methods that work in real life. Currently, my language project is Russian. I quit for a long time, but I started again in August 2025. And since December 2025, I've been consistently studying it. I'll probably try to make a video in Russian anytime soon. So thanks for watching this video, and I hope to see you next time.